firstly, cortisol is essential for protein metabolism. All right.
Yeah.
So we need it. And I think these people are very much unable to listen to themselves, because they're also the people that complain about adrenal insufficiency as well. So there's not enough cortisol, or there's too much cortisol. Of course, the problem is chronically elevated levels of cortisol, and what do we call chronically elevated? Because we go back to those reference ranges. And I'll use this as a simple thing to say, because if you go to the dentist, if you look closely, you will see a glucagon injection, okay, to raise blood glucose, not cortisol. And there's a really good reason for that. And the reason is cortisol isn't the main driver of glucose production. Glucagon is. And I think everybody knows that. All right. So firstly, they're looking in the wrong place. Secondly, there's medically proven mechanisms. Like I say, the dentist is the easiest one, because they make it really available, because they need it. All right. So you would think that you want to raise blood glucose quickly, it would be cortisol. So there's a common sense thing. Secondly, like I say, it's involved in protein metabolism. We eat more protein, so we're going to need more cortisol. All right. That's another thing. And T3 will push glucose production up as well. So what do you want? Do you want to stop the cortisol because it's making gluconeogenesis happen, but in the same time add a different hormone that promotes gluconeogenesis by raising? It's not joined up thinking. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And I will prove where cortisol, the production of glucose from cortisol, is different. Cortisol has a great effect that nobody really talks about. Okay, so they do talk about fight, flight, or freeze. If a tiger runs in here, I know it's corny, I'm going to want to raise my blood glucose, right? I wouldn't do it with anything other than cortisol, because cortisol is going to stop anything lowering my blood glucose. And you get what's called physiological insulin resistance. The body's really smart, because if you think about it, the tiger comes in, I need my blood glucose to go up. Yeah, I'm going to produce some cortisol, but at the same time, my body's going to lower my blood glucose. That doesn't make physiological sense. So that's where the chronically elevated issue is. And we're not doing that. We're not in fight or flight, because what's happening is our blood glucose isn't staying elevated. We all have very low blood glucose. So it's not the same mechanism, if you get my drift, because otherwise, if it was cortisol driven, it would always be elevated, because the point of a cortisol reacted glucose level is to stay elevated so you can run away and get up a tree or fight. And this is where the anxiety thing comes in as well. If it's chronically elevated, if you're in a job, you hate your life and stuff like that, anxiety is problematic. I'm not saying that isn't, but when you're looking at a cortisol reaction, it's absolutely essential, because the tiger coming in, you need anxiety to make a decision. We don't have anxiety for no reason. It's a physiological thing that we need. Without anxiety, I'd just go, well, there's a tiger. I think I might need to do something. My anxiety kicks in. It's like, right, decision time. I've got to go. And this is where, if we go back to common sense, this is why people in, say, a job where their manager they absolutely hate, why their health is destroyed, because they can't run away. They can't punch the manager in the face. They can't say what they really think. So they have that chronically elevated fight, flight, or freeze response, and a chronically elevated level of anxiety. That's nothing to do with diet. That's situational. That's environmental. If you want to get into the biophysics or, the biochemistry of it, two different things slightly, it doesn't make any sense that the body would produce cortisol when we need some slightly more blood glucose just to get through a workout, So when you go, like I say, when you work out, as soon as you contract a muscle, what's actually happening more than anything is the GLUT4 expression improves. So the glucose that you do have is uptaken, so you can feel stronger. And then you will get the response from the cellular level. And this is where the sodium potassium pumps come in and where the T3 mechanism comes in. So what's happening at the cellular level is your sodium potassium pumps go, like gangbusters, as they say. And that's detected. That's a T3 reaction. That's T3 that's doing that. And it will sense, wow, the metabolic rate isn't where it should be. The feedback will say, we need more. So what will happen is T3 production will go up. It will enter the cell and do exactly the same thing, go through the transcription factors, make the membrane proteins and produce more sodium potassium pumps. And that just gets the whole system going. That's not cortisol driven at all.
Mhm.
And it's just crazy, because that's why you come out of the gym feeling good.
Mhm.
No one ever says to me, I tell you, when I was an advanced personal trainer, I had many people say they don't fancy working out today until they'd worked out. And I never, ever, in all those years, had one person ever say to me, I really regret doing that, ever. So, um, so if it is cortisol, firstly, that proves it's not all bad. But secondly, it isn't cortisol anyway. You get all these good effects. You get endogenous morphine, which people call endorphins. So this this is what frustrates me so much. You can probably tell from my body language that it's not understanding what's going on. It's making this, cortisol is a stress hormone, and it's really bad, and it's producing lots of glucose. No, it's not. It is in certain situations. That's when it's needed. If you can react when it's needed, that's good. But when you've got the environmental stress is the key here. So if you're in a job that's really bad, I tell you what, any way of eating is not going to make much difference. I think carnivore will make you more level-headed. I think you'll be less inflamed, and maybe you'll be able to cope with it a bit better. But in the end, in life, you must get this sense that there are certain things where diet isn't the thing. We were talking about personal grief. If you've got some grief in your life, having a ribeye might be marginally better than having, fruit salad, but you've still got the grief. So you've got to deal with the actual thing that's causing the stress in the first place, or, the way you think about it. But looking at it as a sort of, like I say, biochemistry thing, cortisol is not the enemy, and we need cortisol. Cortisol is there
Mhm.
for a reason. It wakes us all up. I mean, it has that effect. Again, there's a great example. If cortisol was bad, you know, um, it would raise your blood glucose, but then it's got to do its job. It's got to keep it elevated. So it makes you, and I hate the phrase, but let's use it. It makes you insulin resistant temporarily,
Mhm.
because otherwise it wouldn't do its job.
Mhm.
So cortisol is there to put your blood glucose up, to wake you up. So we have it every single day. Now, when we do a diurnal testing and we see the beautiful shape, like a sort of ski ramp, that's fine. You don't go, "Whoa, look, it's really bad in the morning." We all say, "Oh, we know what that is. That's to get you up." So cortisol isn't the enemy. But if we didn't see that beautiful shape, if we saw it across the day, it wouldn't be being in ketosis that's caused that.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's not the stress of gluconeogenesis that's causing that. Absolutely not. There's
Yeah.
something else going on in your life. Absolutely.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, the Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
Yeah. Well, and also that's the confusion there as well is, first of all, being in ketosis does not elevate your cortisol past physiological levels. A.
Mhm. Yeah.
B, it can ameliorate superphysiological levels of cortisol. And C, stress can increase cortisol levels, but increased cortisol levels for other reasons does not cause stress. And that's a
Mm.
problem that people look at
Yes.
cortisol and stress as synonymous. And they're
Mm.
saying that, well, if you have elevated cortisol, that's mean putting more stress on your system. And if you go into ketosis, that elevates cortisol, and that's putting stress on your system. No, like even if this were a physiological mechanism, say, oh, well, we wanted to raise your blood sugar, it's not that, oh, we're going to cause stress and then cause cortisol to go. That's actually adrenaline. Adrenaline is
Mm.
is secreted when you are stressed or in that fight or flight sort of mode, and then cortisol actually ameliorates the effects of adrenaline. So I've heard people argue that it's actually adrenaline that's actually a very serious issue with stress. And then cortisol is actually the saving grace, is coming in and putting out the fire caused by adrenaline as well. But either way you look at it, if cortisol is going up for a physiological reason, it's not causing stress. When you wake up in the morning, your cortisol level's up. It's not because you're stressed. It's not because there's stress there, and it's not causing stress. That's a normal physiological response, and that's something that people sort of get backwards all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, but I think you were more eloquent than me.
No. I was going to say too, you mentioned insulin suppression. So this is something that's gone around. I've heard people talk about this before, and I've certainly had, my views on this, and certainly never seen anything like this in practice and so on. But I mean, a lot of times people bandy around these terms, and there's actually no real working definition. It's say, oh, you should eat plants because of hormesis. The hell do you mean by hormesis? And there's tens of thousands of chemicals. There's hundreds of thousands, nearly a million. Which ones are hormetic and at what levels, and are they? And there's 1,000 in each vegetable, and so which ones are you talking about? Which ones are hormetic and which ones aren't? And at what dose and how many leaves? And like, what the hell are you talking about? Sort of a meaningless sort of term. And so insulin suppression, is there a working definition of this? And then what do they mean by that? And what would that really mean? Because to me, that would mean that if you were, and then if you could go ketogenic or something like that, this could suppress your insulin, that you're not getting enough carbohydrates to boost this, even though that wouldn't really make sense evolutionarily, because, there were periods of time, vast periods of time, where people were in the Arctic Circle during the ice ages and didn't have access to any carbohydrates. And, I've looked into the whole glycogen in muscles idea. There's not much. There's really not that much. And it goes away very quickly after the animal dies. It breaks down. And so you're not getting all that much in there. And so we wouldn't have had that sort of bonus from carbohydrates in all these different regions. So if insulin resistance or suppression was a thing, then that would be something that we should have seen and probably bred out. And those guys would have died out, the ones that were susceptible to that. But also, you should see an actual suppression, meaning that when you eat protein, you shouldn't actually get a physiological response via insulin. And so you do sort of a modified, a glucose tolerance test, a protein tolerance test, or a Kraft test, where you have protein and you see, is your insulin rising to physiological amounts? I mean, that's sort of how you would have to prove that, I think. But what are your thoughts on that? And is there an actual working definition, or is this sort of just like a boogeyman like hormesis?